right, we'll have the meeting come to order. If you would, please stand as we do an invocation. Most gracious Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come to this place to discuss the business of the town of Smithfield. Lord, bless our conversation. Help us and lead us in the right direction that we need to go for the betterment of our community. Lord, for those that are out fighting for our freedoms, we ask a special blessing and a hand of protection on them. For those who serve in harm's way, Lord, ask to protect them. For those who are less fortunate, we also ask for those protections of hedge around them. Be with us and guide us and direct us in our ways. In Christ's name we do pray. Amen. You may be seated. Well, excuse me, let's do the pledge. Every opportunity we have. We'll face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now you may be seated. This meeting is called because we had discussion regarding the seeking for a new city manager. We wanted to ensure that we got out input from the citizenry of the community. We have advertised this on the Johnston Community PEG channel. We've done it on the website, the Town of Smithfield's website. We've had other publications where we have asked for people to be involved in the community. We want to, and it's very important to this council to hear words back from the citizens of what they would like to see, any special notations they would like to see in a city manager. We have provided also on the PEG channel and the website a city manager general statement of duties. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to see that, but if you haven't, there's one over here, a hard copy that you're welcome to look and pick it up. This is a guideline that we got from the League of Municipalities that is generally set forth by the League as general statement of duties and responsibilities of a city manager. We want to take this, and what we were advised by the League to try to do, is to take this information that we have on these general duties and any corresponding ideas that you have as a community, write those down together and develop a profile that will help us match a candidate with these general specific duties. And so that's what we're here for tonight. We have boards on both sides. I'm going to ask Justin and Richard to write these things down for us. We may could do just one board, Richard. Justin can do that. So that we can the board can meet and take these ideas and incorporate these ideas into our profile of what we may be looking. And if we can, we don't have a large audience here tonight, but if someone speaks on a topic or if you see it in this document, and not to be redundant, but feel free to speak and keep your time frames to a limit if you can, so we can make sure everybody can speak. I was anticipating a larger crowd tonight, but at the same time, we can continue to push forward with what we have and get some great ideas from those who are here. The floor is open to the council. If you gentlemen have any other remarks before we get started, I'll open it up to the floor at this time. No general remarks. So has everyone had an opportunity, or some had an opportunity, to see the city manager profile that we have here already before us? Are there any comments to this document? Anybody? Mr. Ruffin? Yes. That's right. I think that last desirable education and experience speaks to that, Mr. Ruffin. So that's duly noted, though. I think it's important to note that. Are there any suggestions that you folks have that you would like for us to consider as qualifications and/or characteristics that you'd like to add to this description. Feel free to do it. And I will ask, because we are taping this for our PEG channel, for people to be involved in the community, and I didn't do that, Mr. Ruffin, I apologize. We're going to have to come around and speak to the microphone. I don't have a handheld mic. So those who would like to speak, please come forward and do that for us. Come on up, Mr. Ruffin. Would you like to do that? Thank you for the reminder.
I guess I'm supposed to identify myself.
Please,
so
if you would.
I'm Ruffin Johnson. And I think all of you know I actually don't reside in the town of Smithfield, although I did for a long time. I reside in Wilson Mills. But I have a business here in Smithfield, and I've operated Smithfield for over 50 years. I not only have resided here for 77 years, minus the time I was in school in the Army, but my parents resided here and my grandparents on both sides. So I kind of go back a long way. Not that that really makes a hill of beans, but I just thought I'd identify myself. My concern has been that, and I think I better change the way I started. What I would like for the board to consider is to consider hiring somebody that basically has not performed as a city manager or a county manager. I personally feel like that people who have been in the business field or the military for a number of years have got a set of training that they have gone through, and I think would be a big help to this town and this community. I realize sometimes that somebody, if we're talking about a physician or we're talking about a lawyer, they have to go to a certain school, and they have to be able to qualify not only to get a license but continue to perform their duties. I don't think that's really true in town management. I think that if we get the right person, if you all get the right person, excuse me, and that person is of quality, that he has had experience in the business field and maybe also in government, but not solely in government, we may be way ahead. And to back this up, I got to thinking about how I was going to make this point. And the gentleman over here reminded me, because we talked about being in service, and he was in the Marine Corps. And during World War II, the armed services had discovered something amazing. They actually discovered that some of the best officers that they had in the military during World War II were not those that went to West Point, nor were they that were commissioned officers, but they were battlefield promotions, because they had on-the-line job experience. And sometimes the experience that you gather in other fields helps you in a different field. I'd like for the board to really give serious consideration. I realize that you may not get the applications of the individual that I'm talking about, but I certainly hope you will. And I'd like for the board to consider not just looking at somebody that has been involved in government at any level, maybe had some experience, but has had a number of years of business experience. Dealing with, in my opinion, dealing with people is one of the key issues to this position. They've got to be able to read. They've got to be able to use different abilities. But one thing is they've got to think, and they've got to be able to relate to the people they're involved with, whether it be department heads, individual workers, the board, or the citizens. So sometimes a person that has multiple experience in other areas, I think, can help any organization. And I encourage you, if you get applications, to consider somebody in that position. Thank you, sir. Oh, one other thing. I want to thank the board and the mayor for doing this. I'm disappointed that not more people are here, but sometimes that's the way it is. So, but I do thank you all for taking this opportunity to actually seek advice and seek help.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Come, Mr. Dixon. I'm sorry.
If I can make one
Yes.
Statement there. If as the speakers come up and I write this down, if before they leave they can just make sure that I captured what they intended for me to capture, because I'm trying to write and I may miss something. So
Definitely. If we could do to that request, that would be great. Please state your name for the record, please. And
I'm Bob Dixon. I live in Smithfield over the Eastwood subdivision. Ruffin stole my thunder a little bit. That's about what I had in mind, is that I would like you to consider someone who's not necessarily of government service, i.e. town manager, whatever. I've always thought that in positions such as this, or county manager, and even, God forbid, actually school board or school superintendent, that somebody with a lot of managerial experience, knowing how to handle people, knowing how to manage people, is primarily the most important thing you can do. You can learn skills, and you can learn laws, and you can learn certain things of that nature, but knowing how to manage people is something that comes from lots of experience, and it's a difficult thing to learn. And Ruffin's point is that someone who's had that kind of experience would make a better manager, in my opinion. And I've made comments to other people in the community. I will not mention it. I've named 4 or 5 people here in this community that are actually retired business people who would make fine town manager, in my opinion. I've actually asked a couple of them if they're interested in applying, and none of them have, but that's the point I want to make. So, I told you mine would be fairly easy right now.
thank you, Mr. Bob. Anyone else, please come forward. We'll be anxious and glad to hear your comments of what you would like to say. If you can, too, just a reminder, we're trying to keep this so we can hear on the PEG channel, so speak loudly into the mic. It will help us on the recording.
I'm Bob Worsham. I reside in Smithfield as well. I was going to say what Ruffin and Bob had said as well, that you guys need to really consider thinking outside of the box, not just looking at what people have done in the past about hiring from a pool of people that are only tied to city management. You also ask about this document. One thing that strikes me is what has been a problem over the last several years and some of the problems that you guys have dealt with over the last year seems to have been missed because we don't focus very strongly on auditing. I know that we do a financial audit, but the financial audit is done once a year and is done retroactive. I probably am partial because I come from a background of working in pharmaceuticals, and Andy probably will agree with me that most of the items that you identify is not done on an auditing basis that you look retroactive. It is done where you're being proactive in your operational audit as well. I don't see anything in this document associated with this as part of the city manager's job. And I would strongly recommend that you guys not only look at it from a progressive financial audit situation, but also an operational audit that includes all departments as well. That's where you're going to see the majority of what your problems are.
Thank you very much. That's a great recommendation, and one I think we've recognized as a need. We can incorporate that. Other thoughts? Come forward, please. Yes, Mr. Osbrook. Again, please state your name for the record.
I'm Ernie Osbrook. I'm a resident of Smithfield, and I have a keen interest in what happens as a result of all of this, as I am a resident here. I want to see things better than they have been for a while. And in addition to the points that Ruffin made, I would add that I think you should look primarily for someone from this area. I think it does not serve our city, our town as well if we get a professional that is recruited from outside. He will come in here and look at this as a job, as employment. If we have someone from this area, whoever that may be, then he has an incentive to see that our community that he lives in gets better, whether it be someone as Ruffin lives outside or someone in the city, I think it would be a mistake for this organization to go recruiting way outside, spending money to recruit some professional that would come in here and stay a few years and then find a job that will pay more and move on. I would like to see us get someone that's going to stay here, settle here, and make this their home. Pete Conant did that, and he liked this community so much that once he retired, he stayed here. I would strongly encourage you to look in rather than spending money to look outward for a professional. And as has been stated, I would agree with these other people that there are a lot of qualities that could be brought to the forefront that will serve this town very well, and it may not necessarily be experience as a city manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alsbrook. Duly noted. Other comments? We'd be glad to hear anyone that would like to come forward. Anybody else? Does the board have any questions or comments they'd like to make as we put this together?
Well, what they said is very good. And, you know, I hope the board will consider it. Ruffin stated it's going to be difficult to get those people to come forward. That's the main, you know, good candidates have good jobs. And, you know, this is a challenge, to say the least, working in Smithfield. But, and Bob had a good idea, too. There are lots of people out there that are in this community and around this community that would do a wonderful job and have a business background and a sense of organization that would certainly be a strong point and something that we need in this community. We've had city managers in the past who were not trained as city managers as such, but were local, and as far as I know, they did a fine job. So the difficulty is going to be getting people to come forward and put their name in the hat.
Mr. Harris?
Where do we stand? Where do we stand on? I understand we reopened the application process. At least my understanding, we were going to do that. And have we seen any activity on that side for more applications? Where are we in that position now?
No, the board actually suggested and made recommendations by vote last meeting we had to get the profile put together and then
First.
put that back out, so it has not been re-advertised. However, we have been getting in a few trickling in that was still on the initial, is that right, Richard? That have come in sporadically since that time. But the idea I heard from the board, correct me if I'm wrong, was to get the profile put together and then re-advertise with that particular profile of what we were looking for a candidate. Is that correct in your understanding? That's correct. Okay. So that's where we are, Mr. Harris, on that. But this will help us as we put it together, and that is our next step, is to assemble this information and other information that we'll continue to get through via email. If you folks can talk with your neighbors and they have not had the opportunity to be here tonight, feel free to give us the input. We'd like to hear it. That's the reason we established this and set the time aside for it. But we'll entertain any other comments. Anybody else who wish to say anything, we're glad to have you here. I wish we had more. No other comments? Does the board have anything else, brother?
Well, Mayor, I want to echo what Mr. Worsham stated regarding, the forward thinking as far as the ability to possibly identify, problems and so forth, and the ability to recognize a problem early. You're right. I just finished up an inspection this week with the Korean FDA, and one of their things was, well, yeah, we had identified a problem, but how was it affecting our overall quality organization? And forward thinking, basically process improvements. We've identified this one problem, but what is the huge impact of this one problem? And that's what they were focusing on. Not that we had identified the problem and we had corrected it, but how is that affecting the overall quality of our entire organization? And I think it's very important that we try to identify a candidate that has the ability to do and has some concrete examples of that type of skills and so forth.
I agree. Anyone else have any comments from the board or from the audience? Yes, come forward, Mr. Harris.
It's difficult for me to do, but I'd like to speak as just a citizen here instead of a department head. It's because I chose Smithfield many years ago and raised my family here and bought a home here and property, and I'm currently investing a significant amount of money in Smithfield, so I've got my family has a real interest in what the direction of the town is going. I think in our new city manager, I would love to see a person who can unite the group and be a team builder. I think the citizens have lost confidence in the town of Smithfield. I think the actions of 3 or 4 people have overshadowed all the good work that goes on a daily basis. That seems to be all we focused on, and I agree. It was it was not our most shining moment. But I think there's a lot of good things that are going on in town that we're missing out on. And I think a good manager can come in and reunite. The team players should be the citizens and the board and the department heads and the employees. We should all be on the same team. Be working together for the common good. And I believe standing here today that there's a lot of people that have that at heart, that they want to see Smithfield progress and grow. And I think I speak for probably a lot of folks that have that genuinely. Are people going to make mistakes? Yes, they will. Are people going to do things that we are not proud of? Yes, they probably will. This is probably not the first time in the history of the town of Smithfield since, 1777, and likely will not be the last time that something will be a shining star. But I think with a new manager and in the right situation, I agree with the business part. I can see both sides because I've worked in both places. I've been a manager in both sides, private industry, and I've been a manager in government. And while it sounds good in both ways, there's got to be a good compromise there because government is complicated, and it does not work like private business. It just doesn't. Hours going into why, but it just doesn't. I think there's some good sound management practices that can be brought from business, and I totally agree that that's a good way to look at it. We need to run the town as an efficient machine that serves the people, but it was never meant to be a profit organization like a business is. Business is for profit. Otherwise, they would call it hobby. You're there to make money. In government, we're here to serve the people. The goal is for it to be a wash. If we're generating too much revenue, then we're charging too much for our service. So it's different, but it's the same. So I welcome the new manager, whoever the board chooses and the citizens choose. I look forward to the opportunity to work with him or her. And I think Smithfield's best days are ahead of us. I think it's time to move on and smile and dust ourselves off and go back to serving the people and taking good care of the folks like we all intentionally set out to do in the very beginning. I look forward to that. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate those good words. Anyone else wish to speak? We'd be glad to entertain you. All right, come forward, please. Mr. Johnson, you've got a lot on your heart tonight. Come on up.
I think the chief said it better than I did. You know, I did school systems for a long time, 30-plus years. When I'd go to a school system all over this state, I could tell you two things I could do and tell you how that school, that individual school was running. I could go sit outside the principal's office for 30 to 45 minutes and tell you what was going on in that school. Or either I go to a teacher's meeting and make a presentation and watch and listen, I could tell you how that school was running. I've been to schools in Jones County, I've been to schools in Durham, I've been to the Chapel Hill, I've been all the way up the coast, anywhere you want to name. But a good school system, a good individual school has one thing that others do not. It has a leader. That's a tough thing. Y'all got one tough job. I hate to tell you that, but you may not realize it. You may realize, but that's one tough job. You've got to have a leader. If you've got a leader, you can have average teachers and you'll have a great school. You can have great teachers and an average or below average principal, and you haven't got anything. I started to say I ain't got nothing, but my mother would not there. So, you know, the job of a leader is unique. And my point again about the military, I actually served a long time in active duty and was in reserves for a long time. And that is true. World War II, they discovered that the corporal or the sergeant that was left became a better leader than somebody trained in officers training school or even West Point, because they had on-the-job experience and they had learned from the ground up. So sometimes if we start too high, we don't know what the heck's going on below us. I thank you for your time, and I'm sorry that not more folks here, but I appreciate y'all taking the time to hear from us.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffin. We appreciate that. And as I have stated before, this is probably one of the biggest decisions we have been faced in many years, is getting the right candidate to move us to that next step. And I think it's very important that we do that. And I appreciate the words that have been shared tonight. And I'll be glad to stay here all night if somebody else wants to speak. But if not, for the sake of time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Anybody else wish to speak?
They don't have to be confined to this meeting. If you've got good ideas that pop in your mind later on, we're all available.
Please let us know.
We're open. If you've got the magic bullet, bring it on. Ruffin, would Mr. Glenn qualify?
Yes, sir. I'm going to tell you one good story.
This is the third time now.
You're striking out after this.
This is the charm.
When I went into the 9th grade, that was the county school system discovered that boys and girls did not need to be together when they went to 9th grade because they were going to have PE. And they didn't even want to talk about health, much less anything else. So they separated us all. Well, that was a big mistake, because when boys are with girls in school, most time they behave better. So consequently, myself and several others got to spend a lot of time in Mr. Glenn's office. And one day he was really upset with us. There was 4 of us there: myself, Joe Dupree, Wallace Warren, and Bruce Wilkins. Now, Bruce died early, and Joe swore it won't him. But during the conversation, one of them raised a hand to interrupt Mr. Glenn. Mr. Glenn started off by telling us how sorry we were. We were never going to amount to nothing. You know, we didn't pay attention in class. We didn't do our homework, so forth and so on. And he got to hollering. When he got upset, he would repeat himself. He leaned over the desk and began saying, "Why don't y'all do better? Why don't y'all do better?" Well, one of those boys raised their hand. And he said, "What is it?" He said, "I can tell you, Mr. Glenn, why we don't do better." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "We have to spend so much time in here, we ain't got no time to learn anything." He threw us out of school. Well, we went to football practice and back to school.
Well, storytelling hour. Thank you, Mr. Ruffin. That was good. I enjoyed that. Anybody else have any comments? Glad to hear them. If not, do I have a motion? We adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Okay, those in favor, aye. Opposed? We adjourn. Thank you very much for coming.